So then, we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end as per Mashiyach the prophet. We find layers of understanding of the spring feast, the autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Mashiyach laid waste for many centuries. As we read then Mashiyach, the 61st chapter, then people listening for the first time, they can understand the importance of the multi-layer records of this great prophet. And he was very acquainted with the holy instructions as the basis or the structure. From then we can understand the future events. As far as the Hebrews, or then the completion of the spring feasts writings, you find then the record of the Second Tabernacle services and also the instructions of the priestly line given to these people who are going to be then engaged upon the works of the tabernacling. As we read then the documents of Hebrews, we find then there is a section where then the team of Yohanan wrote very precisely as far as the shadow prophetic events coming from the Torah. Or then many people can understand these by reflections. When the Holy Torah was then explained and then Moshe then wrote it, at that time, at first, he didn't truly understand. Later on, when he began then to study very importantly, he first had taken the time to analyze these holy instructions, and he spent then the later days of his lifetime studying the holy instructions, and at the end of it he had an idea of what the Torah would then provide for the people of the future, not only for the Hebrews but also for the Gentiles, those who were then included in a family, those who become then part of the holy instruction themselves. So then, let's make an evaluation from the prophet Mashiyach, and then understand the Mashiyach himself was then completing the spring feast. While he was then reading the holy instructions, he was then given the Megillah of Mashiyach the prophet. And then the Mashiyach himself found the layer particularly involving himself. So then he wrote as far as himself as coming as a person then bringing the great news as far as the completion of the first section of the Torah, or then the spring feast. And the Hebrews, they were very acquainted because they were training these feasts for more than 1,000 years. However, as we can read from the holy instructions, the Hebrews were truly far away from truly exercising those holy feasts as they should have been. But let's then make an evaluation why they were so involved with paganism, yet trying to become obedient to the holy instructions. As we can understand, the people of the law of the time, they came up with takanot and maasim. The only section of these words you find in Mashiyach. Most importantly, because Mashiyach was a priest. It was from the priestly line. He was very acquainted with the services of the Holy Temple. And then he gave the specific understandings as far as this topic. But let's then make an evaluation further. Because as we read then Mashiyach, then chapter 24, and also reading from the holy instructions, you find then the first section of the 61st chapter was then underway. And the Mashiyach then explained himself as then the very person involved with these holy understanding. But he did not read the part B of the 61st chapter, because it was related with the vengeance or the autumn feast coming in the future yet. And the world itself is going through many changes. And there are some truths recently found that the outcome of this revelation is so intricate with governments, it's not even worth it speaking at this time. Maybe later, because many of the countries who are considered as low at the moment, it's going to be used very strongly and in a very powerful way in the future. However, we can say this much as far as what's coming. Africa is becoming then a country, or then a set of countries, or a continent known throughout the world. And many of them, whom the Creator himself then is obviously picking by himself, are going to be extremely influential. And there are other countries that are going to be involved that's going to make sure these must be so. Reading then what's going on in the world, many nations then are involving themselves in trying to come up with some sort of adjustment of a very bad period of time. This last 1,000 years mostly was a disaster. And then nations, they are trying to cope with so many mistakes they have made, and the level of bad decisions are so high. For instance, Brazil. It is absolutely, in quote, sunk in debt. The government is absolutely sunk in so many bad political scandals, thieving, and even in New York, for instance, where then the Brazilian-owned petroleum company had then the honor of becoming part of, they ended up deceiving so many investors, and they found out the situation, and then the directory of this PT company has to go to New York and then give an explanation why they decided to go through so much and deceiving the investors. So then, as far as these people going over there and give an explanation, it's nearly not worth it, because they are going to try to come up with some sort of excuse, another type of lie. And New York already knows the entire situation. They already have the documents of what this company has done. So what then in the world they're going to say over there, it's a mystery. But we know it's not going to be positive. So as nations then are coping with so much and so rampant stealing from the people, then we have to confront ourselves and understand how clean the new system of the East is, as far as the new computerized system of China. It doesn't mean that China is completely clean. They also have their own troubles there, but they are under the control as far as we can understand. But when the new system is implemented, there won't be, as far as politicians gorging themselves with the printing money machine and then stealing. Only to give an idea, there are some places in Brazil, even the governors are then leaving their posts. There is a particular place in northeastern Brazil that the governor decided to get out of the posting because they are afraid of investigations going further than Petrobras and then going after them. So some of these people, they have quit their jobs because they are afraid of being investigated. So the amount of junk that's coming out of government is absolutely staggering. And then a situation that this country doesn't understand as far as Brazil is this. Being a scoundrel is synonymous of being smart. That's how the situation works in this country. However, when this country goes and makes deals international, then the situation changes. So then, let's hope then next month when this PD group of this company that's absolutely bankrupt beyond insolvency Let's verify what they're going to say, because they're going to represent the work that this country is doing. And they can be sure of it. New York can already start the paperwork, because they won't have any answers as far as to countermand the evidences that New Yorkers already found. And this company has invested up to 2030 in these pre-salt petroleum deposits, and at this very moment in time it's not worth it exploring it. So they have made bad decisions for these last 10 years. They have stolen from the people. They didn't work with the refineries. And rather than working with the refineries, so then at this moment they could explore with a low cost, they don't even have the pilot ships, they don't even have the petroleum bases to get these products out of the ocean. They don't have enough refineries. So it's a true disaster, and the government is, in quote, adrift. They don't have any answers for the people, not even for themselves. Yet they have the printing machine, so they can gorge themselves, stealing even further. Now, if U.S. is not severe with these kinds of situations, even in U.S. itself, and then abroad, if they don't become severe in teaching the people that these situations should not be done, then the world is nearly bankrupt. It has to have an example at some point, at some place. And let's hope next month, when this Brazilian group is going over there giving some answers, let's hope that New York and U.S. is going to be extremely severe with them, so it becomes the example for the others. Because this nation does not know what to do with this company. This company, they have purchased the price discrepancy in an international price, and so then they purchase this discrepancy in order to control the market. Let's say the price of fuel in international market is 25. They have the product sold in Brazil for 10. And then the Brazilian government is purchasing this discrepancy of price, so then when people from the outside, they try to come and explore in order to compete and make the prices lower, then they are not able to get returns from their investments. And then the Brazilian petroleum company is always losing every time. For every $100 that this company invests, only has the return around 23. So this company is truly, absolutely a nightmare of bad deals. Now, what are they going to say to the investors over there next month, as far as then giving back the money they have stolen? So then the only situation is obviously raising the price of fuel, so then becomes consistent with the world's market, and then get rid of this company and make sure they find great managers so they can manage the fuel resources of this country properly. And for this, they have to raise the minimum salary. And to do this, Brazil has to have more GDP. It's going to stand as 0.1% this year. So then, at some point, at some place, somewhere has to have an example. Let's hope next month we're going to have our example. So then nations can start doing the work as they should be doing. Because the situation in this country is very precarious. As an example. So then, going back to the holy instructions. Then, Daniel the 11th chapter, we find then the relationship of the kingdom of the east, north, and south. Truly, as we read these holy instructions, you find then very precisely these relationships, and you find also tabernacling on the land of Cush. And there are some aspects where nations are going to be involved with this, as then the new system yet works its way through simultaneously around the world. There are some sections of there that's very dangerous talking of. But later on I'm going to say more of these because there are many intricacies related also with the United States and Israel. But this much we can say. For the next roughly 24 months, the widening of the relationship of Israel and U.S. is going to be dangerously low. And a reason why Israel is going and then bombarding areas of Damascus, near Damascus, or then the border of Syria, is to provoke some sort of a trouble to get the United States closer. As then the Prime Minister of Israel got rid of the Financial Minister and also the Justice Minister, and then he wants to have early elections. The next roughly 4 months he wants new elections. So then lots of situations are taking place around the world. But then these should change when the new government starts in the United States. That's going to be roughly yet a couple of years. But until then, Israel is going to be very much on its own for quite some time. And then Africa must become yet more prominent, as long as we understand the holy instructions and the significance of every prophecy. Next time I'm going to evaluate more regarding this topic, so please stay tuned. Much more coming.